let it through.
Yeah, and I've got trusted associates that are telling me, I'm 353.2 miles, that GPS, from the Gulf at this point, north of it, and I'm smelling burning asphalt and have been all day. I was driving from this point to that point, and for a long time I had my windows open thinking I had a tire problem, and then I realized it was just the general atmosphere. So already we're getting...
You're kidding. 350 miles?
353.2 miles, yeah.
And that's not with any particular kind of tropical depression, storm, or anything else?
No. There's some kind of a counter-circulation going that's taking the smell, the aroma of all of the fires, I presume, putting them way up into the Gulf, or into the jet stream. Mm-hmm. There's a slippage, a side stream for the aroma, at least, that's bringing it down in this big loop.
Oh, strange.
300 miles north.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. Well, we think we know so much. You know what amused me, and I'm going to mention it again for you regulars, forgive me, but the immediate disappearance of air monitoring reports on air quality in the entire Gulf region was so grossly obvious. I mean, you'd laugh if it weren't such a tragedy. One story on a Louisiana television station we were able to get hold of, put it up there, and talked about the parts per billion of benzene. You know the story.
Yeah.
3,400 plus.
Carcinogens and all this kind of stuff. And being a boat builder, I'm intimately familiar with all these chemicals.
Yeah.
Because you have to be, because they're in so many of the products that you deal with, and they're quite nasty.
Well, the EPA says 0 to 4 parts per billion are safe of benzene, and they were reporting 3,400 parts per billion on this news story, and that was it. I haven't seen one air quality report measuring benzene or methane or any of the other gases that are coming up. Oh, except for the university professor and I guess some of his staff went out and did some really nifty work in the Gulf, in the water, and found out that the amount of methane dissolved and otherwise in the water is over 1 million times what it's supposed to be.
Not surprising, yeah. I mean, given the circumstances.
Right.
And it's going to get a lot worse. It's potentially an extinction level event. It certainly is not going to do us any good. Our long-term data from way back, and I'm talking a couple of years back, had been speaking of this oil volcano that we had, that I'd misapplied, I'd misinterpreted it as being caused by the Israeli mistake when they, in my monkey mind, would drop this nuclear bomb and somehow set off an oil volcano. Well, we have the oil volcano. It's probably temporally related to the Israelis attacking Iran, but they're just not the causal agents. However, within that data set that described it in its initial form was stuff that indicated that the oil volcano would be shut down 19 months later by an earthquake. So if we just postulate that, okay, the mass consciousness had leaked out this information to us, maybe a year and a half ago, I'd have to ask George when we first started discussing this, because it was initially associated with the Israeli mistake.
Right.
But the George Ure postulate is that the longer we see something appearing in the data, the more emotional impact. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot more emotionally impacting than this oil volcano, so it makes sense that it appeared a couple of years back. In any event, if that is correct, that our forecast was that accurate that far back, then I see no reason to doubt the other part of it, which is that it would shut off due to an earthquake in 19 months. And so the way I'm thinking about it is that, let's get Harper somebody to fire off the earthquake now, take our lumps with New Madrid going, but at least shut it down now, because the problem is if we let it go for 19 months, or if it goes for 19 months because we're impotent in attempting to do anything, then even shut off then, we're looking at basically a mass that will rotate around the planet for 50 to 80 years, poisoning everything that it touches.
The ecosystem connectivity and ramifications thereof are just off the chart. We have nothing to compare it to. Right. Nothing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The only events we've ever had to compare it to were non-man-made, were massive climate change.
Right.
And they affected mass populations negatively. So we've seen that level of diaspora in the past.
All right. Hold on. Back in just a minute with Clif High of halfpasthuman.com. The new report is there. Okay, and let's get right back to Clif High. Here's a 1-minute piece I want to play, Clif. It's a YouTube video. Surf on Pensacola Beach, boiling like acid. It's a video, and I'll post it, and you folks can see it. For those of you who are familiar with normal surf line activity, when it rolls up on the sand and then recedes, I think you'll be pretty amazed at what they're seeing on Pensacola Beach right now. So here we go, and listen to the fellow on there describing what he is videotaping.
I'm the only person here in the water line. If you see the water bubbling, it's probably the reason. I've never seen anything like this in the Gulf. Look how the water's bubbling. There's definitely something in it that's causing it to do this. Let's walk up and look at our beach. Unbelievable to think that these used to be called the world's whitest beaches, and look at them now. And God only knows what that is in the water that's making it bubble like it's got acid in it.
Well, we could make some guesses. 1,000,000 times.
Well, either hydrogen sulfide or
either one.
Methane would have caused that effect.
Yeah. Pretty ugly stuff.
Yeah.
We should also credit your work and George's for the October 7th. Is it 3 years now coming up? October 7th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Scary,
the financial crash, and you were on the program talking about that a year in advance, and you hit it on the day. Right on the very day.
Scary stuff,
Yeah, it is. We have a new report out here, and I guess we should talk a little bit about that. And it's 35, 36 pages long, I think, in its entirety. Must have taken another year off your life to do this one.
Don't say things like that.
Well, you're going to live through...
It feels like it. I'll grant you that. But let's not...
You already have 162 years. You can spare a year.
There we go. Okay, cool. But certainly I've shed a few of my remaining hairs. Number 14 is gone.
Wow.
But in any event, yes, it's but it's a different format now because we'd always been fighting. I always hated that particular part of writing the report where I was racing time because we get immediacy data that's good 3 days out. Well, that's just really a guess. It might be that I'm reading something and 25 minutes later we see the beginning of that particular linguistic, so no sense writing about it. So that racing time stuff really does wear you down. But this way, the new breakup in the format, getting the immediacy data and then the shorter term and then the longer term, allows a different perspective on all of it. So the next report will take a lot longer, but we should have a further look out. This particular one, though, is focused on this summer through to November, and we know we've got a 4-day tipping point in November. We don't have any clearer perception of what's going to occur.
A tipping point in November.
Yeah, think of the entire mass of the planet's humans running around and sum up all of their emotional attitudes and get the majority of it as one number, like a 6 or something like that. The tipping point is when we're all focused, all of our energies, all our emotions, in a particular way, and then life changes thereafter based on the outcome of that particular event. So the last tipping point we were able to identify was the very first one we did on a social consciousness level, which was the 9/11 tipping point, because life was changed for the whole planet thereafter, pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there were people in the Amazon that became aware of the event 6 or 8 months later, but for the vast majority of us, it was almost an instantaneous that day kind of an event.
Right.
This one coming up in November, we know the particulars around it, how it will affect the humans. We just don't know what the causal agents are. And having gotten the Israeli mistake oil volcano one connected but wrong in terms of what caused what, I'm becoming very hesitant to be monkey mind out there saying, oh, this is going to cause something. But we do know that there's 4 days of everybody holding their breath from November 8th through the 11th, and then 2 months of release language. So
now, the important thing about what you just said, what Clif just said, is release language. That doesn't mean the problem is over.
No,
it just means that
you can't hold your breath anymore. Just the anxiety is in you. You've just got to, let it go. You've got to breathe. Right.
That's right, and then deal with it. And it could be really unpleasant.
Or it could be a giant party. I mean, if something occurred and we had, we can always have it be the other way. Usually our reports don't work out that way, but I keep hoping.
A party for 2 months?
Well, look, what would happen if hypothetically, the shadow government came out from behind the shadows and said, guys, we're going to try and seal off the oil volcano on November 8th with a HARP-like energy weapon thing that'll cause an earthquake. We think it'll probably cause New Madrid to go, and there'll be a whole lot of shaking, but if it works, it'll be done, and we won't have to worry about this. And then that actually occurs. It takes 4 days. We get the New Madrid going off. Everybody's holding their breath to see if it works. And then it did work, and hooray, for 2 months we all party. That would work.
Okay.
Because, the release language would be the same. There'd be a lot of recriminations and so on, but we'd still be thrilled. Everybody would be, back on the new path.
I'd like to see the powers that be admit to such technology.
They won't. That's
my point.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
No, and we also have to face the fact that they're really kind of screwed, because we have to look at it this way. Even if there is going to be an evacuation, they won't tell people. They'll just let it occur. They can't afford to tell people in advance, because the minute that anybody in an officialdom capacity comes out and says, guys, we're going to evacuate even 5 million people, the entire global derivative markets crash of that millisecond because of all the property that used to be backing whatever amount of those derivatives.
Yes. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in hell where you belong.
And it'll occur either way. The minute the evacuations occur, then we realize we can't live down there because of floating gas clouds that are, causing birds to drop dead out of the sky and people
they're there right
cars.
Now. That's right.
Right. The lands will still go, the derivatives will still be shot, but at least there won't be anybody in officialdom that will have to stand up and go in.
I still am amazed that, when you think about it, how few exits there are from massive population centers. Think about it. How many exits are there from your urban population center? Two or three?
You don't want to be talking to me about that.
No, I'm speaking
because I'm building a boat.
Yeah. Now, well, you better hurry. I'm talking to the audience out there. You think about it. You got 2 or 3 major freeways, and that's it. You got a couple of big tractor-trailer rigs sideways. You got no exit routes.
Or even things you can't see, like